you mentioned about just the timing of all this with Kawhi Leonard and what's happening in the July 6th moratorium ending and players getting traded that haven't even been traded yet. So take us through this. Like, what is going to happen with all this timing, the order of operations and everything going on?
Yeah, I mean, the order of operations is that it's what's supposed to happen is that the Lakers are going to use their $32 million in cap space if or without Kawhi Leonard. They're going to sign Kawhi or free agents and build out the roster, and then they were going to do the Anthony Davis trade. That's kind of how it has to work. And I'm looking at the timing of this. We're 48 hours from July 6th, right? At noon, you can start making trades. What happens if this Kawhi Leonard decision lingers into Sunday, where teams are not going to wait? You have New Orleans, you have Atlanta, you have all these other teams who are part of this trade. They've got rookies they want to play in Vegas here. You do the Davis trade before the free agency, then you lose that max cap slot there. So I don't think we've talked about it enough, but we're really getting into this like time crunch right now, where we're 48 hours away from this Davis deal to happen.
ESPN NBA insider Bobby Marks joining us in studio, giving the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less, only at Walmart. It's Golic and Wingo. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Jason Fitz, Jordan Schultz, Royce Young in for the guys. I want to drill down on that so that everybody clearly understands. July 6th is when the Anthony Davis trade has to happen, or is scheduled currently to happen to the Lakers. If Kawhi hasn't been signed by July 6th when that trade happens, because of the timing of the trade that's been previously agreed to, the max cap dollar will be gone, and Kawhi could not sign for max cap, correct?
That's correct. That if they can certainly push it back a day, but you'd have to get New Orleans' permission, you'd have to get Atlanta's permission, because they're all kind of different parts of this trade here. And the inclination was it was July 6th is the date. I mean, we remember Las Vegas Summer League starts July 5th. We've got
and so why does that impact?
Because the rookies can't play. So you've got your first-round picks because of, if you're Jackson Hayes, who New Orleans has but was traded from Atlanta. If you're DeAndre Hunter, who Atlanta has, who was traded from New Orleans as part of, that was the fourth pick in the draft. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who was in Brooklyn, that went to Atlanta and now is in New Orleans. All these guys, until the trade is done, none of the first-round picks can play.
If you were the GM then for the Pelicans or the other organizations involved in this, what would your response be if the Lakers call and say, hey, we're waiting on Kawhi, we need an extra 48 hours?
I would probably give it 24 hours. I mean, I would probably wait. The deal's going to go through. I mean, I would wait till July 7th. I mean, I don't know if it's enough to blow this thing up. But you might get to a point where if you were Rob Pelinka and say, we need to get this Davis deal done. We only have $27 million in cap space now.
So what's the worst case scenario that could happen? I mean, just hypothetically, if it didn't get done.
Yeah, I mean, that $32 million, I got to run the numbers. The $32 million number goes down to like 27.
Wow.
So it just, because the goal was the timing of it was that you needed to use the room first, right? And then act like a team over the cap. And then you get and fit all that money within 125%.
What if, guys,
yeah, I know where you're going.
What if Kawhi decides to wait just long enough to cost the money, then go to the Clippers, and in the process hurt the Lakers' ability to sign another max free agent? I am conspiracy theorying this thing.
I think he was drawing it up on that plane yesterday.
What was going on that flight that we all tracked?
Yeah, Bobby, I wanted to ask you. You've sat in these meetings. You know about what it takes to pitch a free agent. With this coming down to the wire with Kawhi, does going last matter? Do you think that has an impact?
I think it does. I mean, especially for a team you just won a championship with. I think Masai Ujiri, the head of, president of basketball operations, is a powerful man. And I think when you get in a room with him, I think his message resonates here. But then the other end, like you think about the meetings, like I don't think KD or Kyrie Irving took a meeting in Brooklyn. So they know about the organization. I think it was probably more important for him in the Lakers and the Clippers to get a familiarity as far as, 3 or 4 hours. But that's the hard part, Royce. It's like he's been in Toronto for like a year, like almost a year. That like, how does those other teams sell him for 3 hours, unless it's all about living in Southern California, where Masai has basically acted like as a father figure to him for the last 9 or 10 months. Similar like with Paul George and OKC. Yeah. It's hard to get those guys, to leave from that team.
Well, and that's what we were talking about it earlier. What's the balance between pitching your team, if you're like the Clippers or the Lakers or whichever team you are, versus kind of making a case against the other
Yeah,
team?
I wouldn't go there.
Yeah.
I would not. I would just worry
Just
about.
be focused on your
I
own
think
You guys are
I
so
think
much
that.
classier than I am. All of you.
Especially on July 4th. You want classiness.
That's
Yeah,
true.
well, I mean, I'm sure that either team can pitch Kawhi on like 2020 when like basically it's just Siakam,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like that's
Right.
the only guy on the roster there. But yeah, I would probably advise to stay away
Well,
from the negative train.
It's interesting. We've seen now teams bet on their own culture. We saw it with Oklahoma City. Paul George stays. Obviously, Toronto worked out. They get the championship. Is this a trend that you think we'll see more of, where teams are saying, you know what, we're gonna make the gamble on a player that might not resign because we think we can recruit him every day, and our culture is gonna win out?
I think if you have a strong enough front office and all the resources around you, yeah, I think you can do that. But I think if you're hesitant that like we can't keep this guy, that maybe the roster around him is not good enough, or we're going to actually spend the whole year chasing deals to try to put the right players. I mean, a good point, Jordan, is when we got Darren Williams in 2011, like we were not very good at all. And Darren wasn't a free agent until 2012, but we spent a year and a half like just chasing deals to try to make the roster better, sacrificing draft picks. And I don't think Toronto didn't have to do that, right? Like they just kind of
Right.
rolled that group
Right.
out there. They didn't have to make a deal at the deadline. Or they did make the Gasol trade, but that helped, and he opted in here. So I think it's just a matter of how if you're confident within kind of your own group.
We're all losing sleep.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For highlights and analysis, check out the ESPN app. And for live streaming and premium content, check out ESPN Plus.